So welcome to It's Not All About the Numbers, the leadership podcast that doesn't just focus on the bottom line. My name is Chris, and that is Mike.
Hi, everyone.
And today we have co-host, Head of Finance Career Framework at the Government Finance Function, no less, Katrina Williams. Hello, Katrina.
Hi there. It's great to be here.
Excellent. I noticed you sign off your emails with Kat. Shall we go with Kat, or is it Katrina?
Yeah, let's do that.
Kat's good. Okay, perfect. So look, if you are listening to this and enjoying what we're doing, then please subscribe, press like, share it with all of your contacts and colleagues. And we're growing really well in the UK and the US. I've had a look at the numbers, but it's not all about the numbers. So I just want to say thank you to the one listener in Estonia, because I didn't realize we were reaching that part of the world, but it's always great to see that on the numbers. And I think we are developing a bit of a global audience, which is all good fun. So, as I said, if you really like what we're doing, then click the 5 stars. It all helps the algorithms and our motivation. So, thanks for doing that. So, to kick things off, how was everybody's week?
It's been a good week this week. As you know, I've enjoyed some good Gen CFO Dorking time. So travelled down to see you and the team in Dorking this week.
Yeah, I even fed you. No,
I got fed. That was great. Eating's always good. Landed on it's all about the content, not necessarily about how things get delivered, and trusting the content that we've been developing. So I was really happy that we had some good conversations around that. And obviously the main sort of selling point of it all was I got to hang out with your dog and mess around with the family pet. And also this week I've recorded an accidental podcast. So with somebody that I'm mentoring at the moment called Henry Fenby Taylor. So an accidental
is that an accidental post? Is that the actual name, accidental podcast?
No, it was an accident. We were talking about something completely different, and as we started talking, it was just somebody said, this would probably make quite a good podcast. So we were talking about my work on Open DEFRA and the digital transformation we were doing in DEFRA. And we ended up talking for about 50 minutes about that. So it's the Digital Twin Fan Club podcast, his podcast, that he's going to release a chat with me talking about that. But it was really weird because unlike this, which we record in order, we realised into it we were recording a podcast. So then we did the introduction at the end, which was very odd. But hey.
Yeah, you got to look out for that editing time. It's
Yes.
do it in one take. That's what we like. And down the line we have Kat. So Kat, how's your week been?
From a personal perspective, I'm really pleased to say that it's nice and sunny here. So I'm in Northwich, so near Chester in the northwest of England. So of course, I love dogs as well. So lunchtime today, got out and walked the dog. So she loved it. She's about 5 and she's a crazy cockapoo. That's what we call her. From a professional perspective, it's been a full-on week. We've been developing a skills-focused tool within the government finance function. So it's all steam ahead. Where today is the go, no-go decision day. So we'll be launching that hopefully on Monday. So when this goes live, maybe the tool will be already out there. So that's developed on an online portal, so we call it One Finance, and that's where over 11,000 people are registered from finance roles all the way across the government. So that also includes DEFRA, actually, Mike. So we have something in common there. So all of the major departments that you're aware of, so Department for Education, we've got DEFRA. There's lots of other departments that are involved, so Transport, Home Office, Cabinet Office, you name it. I look after the career framework across all of that.
Amazing. Do you actually know each other from DEFRA, or have you just worked there at the same time? You haven't got any dirt on Mike, have you?
So I only joined the government finance function around 6 months ago, and Mike was very helpful actually when I was talking to different people about joining the government. So I was moving from private sector into public sector. Mike helped me with some of the decisions that I had in terms of my career. So a big thank you to Mike.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm sure we'll come on to that.
I've got a quick question, which is, you said today's the go, no-go day. Can we assume from what you said that the decision's been made that it's go, or is that yet to be made?
We are taking the call at 4 o'clock, but I can see everything's falling into place. So we're using a space analogy for our storytelling. So it's a really interesting time. So it's like we're at the launch pad. We're at Cape Canaveral, or we're at the start point just to start the engine. So all the preparation has gone to getting us here today.
Let's hope it's not an Elon Musk-esque launch.
I hope not.
Hey, that's a test and learn approach. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just very expensive. That's amazing. And Kat, did I see that you were on a roadshow recently? Was it this sort of civil service live?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I'm also a co-chair for our regional finance network, and that's for the Northwest. So I'm really excited that I joined the government, and I thought actually it's an opportunity for us to really kind of work in collaboration, but also connection across so many different departments. So I am a finance professional myself. So I'm a FEMA qualified, 20 years worth of experience in finance teams. And then I moved into being in capability and people space. So I'm really interested in still speaking with people in the finance profession. And it's in my own interest to kind of find out through the listening sessions, how it's working, how people are feeling, but also kind of in terms of the future of finance and really connecting to people about what projects they're working on. So it's an opportunity for me to learn, but also for us to have some collaborative innovation, which I know is a phrase that we've used on this podcast before.
Yes, I'm loving it. Well, we will definitely dig into that, because that sounds like an amazing piece of work that you're doing, and we will come on to that. I entertains Mike, as I said. Mike came down to actually be really helpful with our sort of strategic planning and planning out some of our year, and also running a bit of a debrief on the very big Gen CFO Academy with us as well, which was great facilitation. The other thing was we've had our final Gen CFO talks of the year, which we're refreshing in January, which is going to be soon to be announced at the London meet, which we have. And at the London meet as well, we've got our Digital Finance Function Awards being launched, which feels like a long way away, but in event terms, it's really not. It's six months away now, and so it's in June. So lots to do on that, and to recharge the batteries after all of that, I have booked myself a massage for next week. I really needed it, and I've stayed off the booze because the energy was pretty low.
But
Sounds like it's a massage well deserved.
I just wanted to pick up on that. So I circulated before we started chatting a little list that I found on Instagram of energy takers and energy givers, and I just wanted to sort of ask you if to have a quick look at the list and pick out a couple of things off there, because I think that might be an interesting thing to talk about. So the energy takers, things that take your energy away. I picked a couple out, so I'm going to go first because I've already picked a couple out. So I picked out inconsistent sleep and traveling as two of my real energy sappers. So I find not actually having a regular pattern quite tiring. And actually I added my own one, which is I find working with people where there's a lack of understanding or a willingness to understand another person's perspective quite energy sapping. But then on the flip side, where I found energy coming back to me this week, is music. So just before I joined this call, I was listening to some very loud music. Unfortunately, you didn't get to see me dancing around my little office. We've got the nature and dog walking bit that I always do, and then team working. So love a bit of team working. So coming to Gen CFO and working with the team was a real kind of empowering thing this week. Chris, you saw the list. What struck you off that list?
I liked it as a bit of visualization. Actually, it was nicely presented. First of all, just with my data viz hat on. I think for me, sleep's a good one. But I don't know whether I would sort of say that really saps my energy. I think screen time is something that really takes it out of me, and I'm aware of it almost immediately. If I've been on a combination of calls all day, I've been on my phone too much, I've got my wife and my kids telling me that I'm up to like 5 hours today, Dad, or whatever it is, I think that all helps to sort of drain away a bit of the energy without really knowing it. I think I'm genuinely an optimist. So when people are negative around me, it does take my energy, but I'm aware that I need to check that one, because it doesn't help with feedback when, you just want to hear the good stuff all the time. On the energy givers, I think the big one for me is actually exercise, which is the whole irony around exercise, right? You could be low in energy, but do some exercise to some music, and you're back up again. And I decided not to talk about my fitness regime because it's not going that well. But last night I did actually do some kickboxing with some music, so it was it's great. It definitely charges the batteries.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for the energy takers. Generally, I'm quite a positive person. I tend to be a glass half full person. So I do tend to find that, that negativity does kind of impact me sometimes. I find that the seasons do as well. So I really have to be mindful of that. So particularly in the winter, when it's beautiful, I'm the first one that's kind of out there. But when it's a bit miserable, it really can take its toll. I think what I would say is that on the list that stuck out for me was definitely kind of social media and the news. So the last couple of weeks, months, maybe years actually, overconsumption of kind of different resources sometimes can take its toll on me. And I need to remember also that what I'm in control of and what I'm not. And it's just kind of being reflective on that and just taking the time just to have some time away from some of the news as well. I think on the energy givers, I tend to find that gratitude works well for me. So actually, saying thank you to others, but also to kind of reaching out to people about when things work well, and kind of, understanding people's feedback as well. And I find that really gives me kind of a positive kind of change in my day, and it allows me to reframe some of the questions I'm asking myself. The one that stands out for me is learning something new. I really enjoy it. I mean, I'm in the world of capability and skills, so of course I'm encouraging everybody to think about their skills. But this weekend I did the first ever painting class, and I'd never tried it before. I was really apprehensive about it, and I said to the lady running it, I'd really like to paint my dog. So I went to a portrait class, and I can genuinely say I loved the creativity. I loved the boost of the energy that gave me, and I'm really pleased with the output. So maybe I'll share it on LinkedIn sometime so people can take a look. But it's trying something new, and actually not being afraid about what the output and the outcome's going to be, and just enjoying it for the moment.
I love it. It's so true. So true. I think I know someone who recently just started playing piano for no reason at all, and it doesn't have to have a purpose, but they're absolutely loving it for the same reasons. And I think sometimes you got to remind yourself, right, there doesn't have to be a purpose. It's not like I'm trying to be in a band or do a recital at Christmas. It's just like, let's just do something for fun, which is great. And I love the idea of you painting dogs. Maybe I can commission you in the new year. I know Mike's got 3 to be commissioned.
It could be that side hustle.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on to sort of this week, and I hope this isn't triggering for you, Kat, because I am going to go through a little bit of the news. But what I noticed this week, there was a lot of sort of news around talent and skills, and it came through in different headlines for me. The first one was that this is the UK we're talking about, but there was almost 1 million, I think it was 900,000 vacancies in the UK, which you can see that positively or negatively depending on who you are. But there's a lot of news as well around the sort of low unemployment rate as well, lowest since the 1970s. So these two things together kind of worry me a little bit when it comes to talent and skills, because like we've got loads of job vacancies and we've actually got very low unemployment. So what do you guys make of that equation? Because the thing that springs to my mind is, are we actually training people for the right jobs, or are we motivating people to do those jobs? Because this vacancy rate is so high.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually. And I love that it's kind of locked in data, because a lot of the reporting comes from the government on this aspect as well. So I'm definitely keen from a data perspective as well. I think what I would say is, if you think about where we are today in 2023, over the last 5 or 10 years, the focus on skills, capability has definitely enhanced. It's definitely, increased. And the amount of adverts I get in terms of, come train in this and come try this. And, so definitely the culture of learning is changing. That said, I would agree with you. Are we training our people in the right areas that when jobs do come up, that people have the skills then to be able to do the roles that come up? So I think the first thing to do is, well, we can only start where we are. So understanding where the gaps are today is the first step. Actually, do we have any versatility, any flexibility in the current resources that organisations have? What can we do to kind of retrain, flex, and understand where we are? I think there's a good point on motivation, actually. And sometimes it's thinking about kind of the morale aspect, but there's things that are in what I would call the benefits package, which include pay, but actually include lots of other elements as well. So in the last kind of 4 or 5 years since we've been in COVID, a lot more is about, the environment, the working circumstances, so including working from home, some flexibility. There's also those well-being, growth, inclusion kind of themes as well. But then it also comes down to autonomy. Are we really trusting that people to do the role that they've been employed to do? And actually, are we inspiring people in organisations to move on in their roles in order to create this cadence and movement within organisations? Great question.
Great answer. Mike, what's your sort of take on this? You're in organisations trying to develop their people with strategy. Do you see this happening?
So I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction, I think, because my answer this morning about 5 hours ago would have been very similar to Kat's. But I actually saw a programme this morning that I saw was on last night and watched this morning. Simon Reeve back in Cornwall I think it was this time last year. And one of the things he said that really struck me and links to this was that 30 years ago, around 25% of school leavers went to university, and now it's around 50%. So in that period of time, there was a real push, and there was a real push by the Labour government to get more people to go to university. And the question that strikes me is, are we actually reward, or do we think of success going to university now rather than actually getting a job and a career? So the amount of the support for vocational training and people coming out with the skills to do different jobs has gone down over the same period, according to the program I was watching this morning. So that's not me coming up with that. And I think that there's something in it for me about how are we preparing people for the jobs that we think are there in the that 900,000 jobs. What are they? What sectors are they in? What level of skills are they in terms of, are they practical things like engineering, mechanics, plumbers, trades, or are they something else? So I think it's a classic one of those where it's very easy to do a broad brush. We have these many vacancies, but actually what kind of vacancies are they, and how are we preparing the workforce of the future to fill what we need, would be kind of where I'd take it.
Kat, from your point of view, you do a lot of development work, in corporate and in government. What's the sort of the changing role? Do you feel that, and obviously I talk to you from a finance perspective, but are there different skills being needed in the workplace that aren't there at the moment? One of the things that came up at the academy recently was finance skills are almost like your entry point for finance now. It's actually the data and digital skills, it's the communication skills, it's all that is important now to stay in the job and add value.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think it definitely has changed, and certainly when I started my career, it was very much you start your career in a very almost kind of tactical way. There was a lot of requirement for record keepers, and there was a lot about kind of like what I would call foundational finance. But actually, if you think about the trends over the last couple of years, and definitely once we start to do the research in terms of what the future of finance looks like, that's so much more strategic, thinking about options and decision making, and actually that kind of philosophy of, investment and value add. But let's go back to kind of data and digital. I think one of the things that we've talked about before is, digital transformation is upon us, and it is a way of thinking. It is a mindset, and really thinking about the skills that kind of go around the data and digital. You're thinking about things such as, governance. We're thinking about data in and out. We're thinking about insight and strategy and business requirements and decision making. And to your point, influencing, communicating, thinking about professional judgment and collaboration, and using the technology that is changing every day, week, month as we go along. So it's really thinking about the leadership capabilities, management capabilities, and then also encouraging people to grow their careers across the finance profession, and also dipping in and out of the finance profession as well. So you do find that now we're also talking about things like risk management, project management. There are some legalities that are involved as well. So I would say that the very firm, kind of boundaries between a finance role and other roles are much more fluid than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So I think that the world of, to say that we're in the silo of finance now, I think with the introduction of finance business partners, several years ago, and now we talked a little bit about kind of the purple people and orange people in the last couple of podcasts as well, where that literacy between finance, pure finance, and data and digital, that's becoming much more fluid, and people who sit in that space, to the point in previous podcasts, to be fair, it's so insightful, inspiring, future focused. And actually, that's where we're going. So having a mix of skills is the best.
I love it. And, Mike, there's a risk that we live in a bit of an echo chamber when, obviously with the work that we do, but your catchphrase is, I'm not an accountant. Are you seeing this happen in other spaces as well?
I think it happened. It's happening across the board. I just jumping on the words that Kat used there about dipping in and out. I don't think it's just dipping in and out of finance. I think what you're seeing is the growth of people that can dip in and out of different areas, because the skills that are required to lead in different areas are broadly the same. You might not need the technical expertise as long as you can lead and understand what's going on. So you see it in digital, you see it in IT. You definitely see that kind of same. There's almost like a leadership cohort that have a really broad knowledge, as well as a sort of like deep T knowledge in a particular area. Absolutely. And we talked before about that translator role becoming more and more important. We talked about it in the context of business partners before for finance, but actually I think in terms of business translators in general, the people that can work across the silos that exist in an organization to help join things up, is a skill that's really needed, and it's a different skill to the sort of like the expert functions of the past.
So
I'd like to add that there's another element of storytelling with that as well.
Yeah.
So actually the translation of data insight into the storytelling, and I think that's an added skill that's actually quite creative. So just to add that at the end.
Yeah, 100%.
I love it. And you were saying that in the past, our traditional kind of finance career was quite transactional, quite administrative. This seems to be almost the complete opposite. Super exciting, super interesting, maybe sort of broader skills, more project-based, definitely more value adding. Is that the case? Do you see people being more motivated by this future career or career that's actually here now, in my opinion, but people just need to lean into it?
I would say that the tide is changing, and I think there are a lot of people who have been in the profession for a while, and when I said I mentioned mindset earlier, it's true. A lot about change management is about mindset, and it's actually not been afraid about the future and the change in technology, and actually embracing that. I wonder whether there's actually an element of, there's some early adopters, should we call it? There are people who are building the raft, getting ready to paddle, and they're already on the sea. And then there'll be some people who are still, on the beach watching these things happen. And what I would encourage everyone to do is just to raise their level of awareness. So even if you're not actively involved in some, should we say, data and digital forward focused projects, please take the time to raise your awareness, do some basic skills, consider what you can do within your own role, and we can all be on that boat together and really help to navigate that into the future.
I was going to say, I just wanted to sort of ask, so obviously you're working in the government finance function, and I just wondered how what you've just said reflects in that 11,000 people cohort. Do you see those changes happening across that group?
So I think it is mixed. I think much the same as in private sector. I think there definitely is thirst for change, certainly from leaders and managers in that space. I think that sometimes it's just been given the room and the confidence to really do that. What I tend to find is that some people are saying, actually, I'm so busy doing my everyday work, to really kind of raise the gaze, like to really kind of think about what the potential is. So I think it's just, my ask of leaders and managers is to create time. So that's where the magic happens. So doing the same things the same way every day, every week, every month, that's not creating room for creativity and growth. It's actually restricting and kind of locking us to the moment that we're in. So it's actually just kind of making those times in team days, team away days, speaking with colleagues, have a chat with your peers, and really kind of think, well, actually, what are the things that we're doing that we can just not do anymore? And actually, I think it's a real question about the value-added activities that we're doing. I think a lot of people do say to me when I go to spend time with different departments is that there's definitely a focus on skills for the future, particularly now when we're starting to talk about generative AI and other technologies that are coming. I went to a session yesterday with Oracle, and they were talking about kind of the way that they're going about kind of deploying some of the technology that is already out there, but actually how they're guiding their clients to use that.
I love it, and I completely second your appeal almost to leadership to say, look, raise awareness. Just start there. Just raise awareness of these, because are you surprised at this number? Right, at the poll, at the Academy last week, we polled around some of the sort of talent and resourcing issues that people might have. And the number one people challenge in 2024 was actually employee satisfaction. It was 43% of people said it was going to be employment satisfaction that was the biggest challenge in 2024. But when you marry, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but when you marry this up with the finance career framework, as you call it in government, or the future of finance, or this development that's happening around us, I find it hugely motivating. So is this a perfect fix for that employee satisfaction score being so low, or is it more complicated than that?
I think it's much more complicated than that, is my personal view. I think every person is satisfied in different ways. So there is a unique perspective in everyone's eyes about what feels right for them. So I think that it's much larger than career framework, career possibilities and signposting. I think it's a lot more about kind of morale, culture, working environment, where you feel like you make a purpose. So where you have some purpose. So I've been listening to a little bit more. I don't know whether you're aware of Jay Shetty. So he was monk turned coach. He's also a director at Calm, I think, as well, and just been spending a bit more time kind of listening to some of his words lately. And I was talking about my career journey yesterday with one of my networks, and I always go back to, what do people enjoy? What are the people good at? Where you're getting some reward for that? Thinking about making a difference. So whether that's to yourself, to others, to the wider population, to the world, really think about, where you get your satisfaction. And I think that also impacts the employee satisfaction ratings. So it's about how it interacts between your life and your work, because there's lots of things that are involved in every day that can affect your employee satisfaction.
So there's no silver bullet, and I completely agree. At a personal level, an individual level, you definitely need to be tackling this.
And thanks, Kat. So I've got a sort of question, Kat, sort of linking back a little bit to the conversations that we had as you were making your move into the public sector, and I just sort of wondered, now you've made the move and you're in. What around your sort of personal motivations and your personal approach to work do you think you brought with you into that government role? What was it that drove you to make that change?
I think so. I definitely went back to what my purpose was, to be fair. I've always said that I really want to inspire and encourage people to grow and to be their best within their careers. And that goes for me personally. I've done finance roles for 20 odd years. I wanted to definitely diversify my own career. But I actually just wanted to kind of help people on their own journeys. And one of the most rewarding days that I have is when I hear from somebody saying, actually, we've used the tools that, that I'm involved deploying, that are there to kind of signpost people to grow their own careers. And they reach out and say, thank you so much for the resources that you've provided. We have 8 job families under our career framework. That's across grades, across different areas, across over 50 organisations. So when people do reach out to say that really helped me with this, and it really kind of reframed my perspective. Yes, private sector and public sector are fundamentally different in terms of stakeholders. So I'm used to working in private sector where it's about the customer, generating revenue, thinking about sustainability and products. And when moving into public sector, it's much more about kind of the deliverables to, taxpayers, thinking about delivering services and projects that people are involved with. And yes, there's also those traditional accounting roles, which are, planning and budgeting. And, you would have heard the annual statement this week as well. And lots of people are involved in lots of different varied activities. Personally, I found it really rewarding. The flexibility within the public services has definitely helped my work-life balance. So when we went to the energy givers earlier, one of those things about having time with my family and making sure that, that I'm thinking about what I enjoy in my life. And, as I'm kind of mid-career, kind of really thinking about what was rewarding for me, which is not always the check at the end of the month, although that helps, but there's lots of different elements that influence that.
That's really, really fascinating. And just a sort of, I suppose, like a loaded leading question. So if somebody came to you and was and asked you the same question that you asked me about, experience in the public sector and making that move, what would you say to that person that's pondering it now?
I would say, have a go and see what it's like, because I don't think you really know until you experience it yourself. I would say that the culture's different. But actually, I think ultimately it's an opportunity to grow your career in a different field, in a different way. One of the reasons I joined is that I get to influence over 11,000 government finance function colleagues. How incredible is that? The amount of people that through the people and capability team that I'm part of, we're really proud about the reach that we've got, and we're thinking about kind of encouraging people to step forward in terms of their growth, either within their role or thinking about progression.
I love it. And that is a huge number of people you're talking to. And yeah, I just wonder, how do you sort of build those connections? There's so many people there. How do you sort of influence so many people? You must have a comms plan behind you. I know Mike, I don't know if you heard last week, but Mike was talking about back in the day, in his DEFRA days, he had the DEFRA selfie, which seemed to gain some sort of momentum. But how do you connect with so many people to make a change?
So yes, we do have a specialised comms and engagement team. They've got vast experience between them, all the touch points across all of the government finance function. The way I think about it is kind of in a layered way. So thinking about a triangle, so the bottom of the triangle is much more about functional engagement. So we've got what we call One Finance, which is a online portal, effectively hosted in SharePoint, but is a portal for everybody across the GFS to access. All the information that is shared across the different departments is on that portal, and that includes learning resources. So we have what we call the GFA, which is the Government Finance Academy. We also have lots of information about regional networks. I mentioned that earlier. I'm a co-chair of the Northwest area. We have lots of information about opportunities, jobs, kind of project people are on. There's lots of resources there. The second part of the triangle is about departmental contacts. So I have a network of what I call head of finance professionalism contacts across all of the big departments in the government. So we have regular, usually monthly meetings just to say, right, what's going on here, kind of talking about career framework, how we can use that with attraction, recruitment, kind of workforce planning, thinking about projects coming up, allocating learning and skills resources as well. And then at the top of the triangle, it's what I would call cohorts. So very specialised comms with, I'm a real big advocate for kind of equitable access for everybody, for resources, for careers and growth, but also about kind of opportunities and career moves. So I work with different teams, included kind of the Race Network, Women in Finance Network. We have Finance Business Partnering Network. We've got lots of networks across the government finance function. So I contact them on a regular basis to kind of really share the resources we have. So it's functional, departmental, and then cohort.
Excellent. And as a community builder myself, I praise you for that, because that is not easy to do. And I think that is a really sort of huge value add. You know, there's frameworks and there's training and there's L&D, but actually that peer network and peer learning is so important to everyone's development, I'd say. So just moving on, we've got a question here from the Academy before. And if you do want to ask a question to us and the speakers who are on, our co-hosts, then do send questions to podcast@generationscfo.com or reach out to Mike and myself, probably via LinkedIn. That's probably the best thing to do. The question this week is, it's, as a leader, do you ever get fatigue in always thinking about what to do next? I'll start and then I'll come to Kat and then Mike, because I find it exhausting, to be honest with you. I have a fairly fixed approach to what I do when it comes to planning. We have a cadence of meetings, we have a cadence of sort of planning goals, and it's very structured around the vision for the company and, you know, our big, hairy, audacious goals that we put out there, and then, you know, tighter planning around the next year and 3 months, next quarter. So much sort of effort goes into just getting a very short, concise plan that everyone's comfortable with and can achieve. So yeah, I do find it very tiring about trying to think about what to do next. But I also see that as my role. Because if I'm not setting that out for people, then, you know, they don't know which, to use Kat's analogy, they don't know which boat to get on for which port to arrive at.
Yes, definitely thinking about the next thing. I think for me, it's kind of the balance between strategic and tactical. We mentioned the collaboration earlier. I think what I tend to find is that I work better in a team for that. So, for example, on our regional finance network, you know, we all got together in person in Manchester last week. We discussed all of the different ideas. Don't let any boundaries stand in the way. What we're going to do, and deciding that as a team, and it really helps kind of, yes, spread the accountability, but also it's really good to kind of really think about synergies and kind of bringing different ideas where you can bounce off each other, and that's where that power of community comes in. But yes, it can be tiring sometimes. What I would say is just take a breath. You know, just, it's okay just to say, do you know what, that went okay today, and not really think about tomorrow, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. So I think sometimes when we think about kind of tenacity and, you know, being resilient, sometimes it's just taking that breath.
I think I might be the opposite in that I'm always thinking about the next things, even, you know, when I'm doing this task now, I'm thinking about what's the next task and how does that work and how does it work, how does it all come together. I find quite a lot of the work I've done over the last sort of 5 years of being involved in how do you take an aspiration and turn it into a plan. I suppose the bit that I'm not so good at, and actually, Chris, this is where we work quite well together, is the bit that you're really good at, which is taking that from the arm wavy strategic into these are kind of like the steps into their, okay, so what do those steps really look like? And I kind of sometimes shortcut that bit. So the bit I find fatiguing is that bit is, okay, so look, it's obvious to everybody, surely this is the way we're going, this is the plan, let's crack on. And actually translating that into like really short-term steps, I find quite a lot harder. Somebody shared with me today a Trello board for a project that I'm working on, and I looked at it and saw all the tasks on it, and oh my God, my head wanted to explode because of the level of detail that was in there. Whereas in my head, it's like, I know where I'm going, I know what I need to do, I know we all know what we need to do, let's carry on. So
yeah, it's an interesting one. It's almost like, we all have our strengths, but maybe we need to cover our weaknesses, because that's what really tires us out.
Exactly.
Moving on to good data, bad data, which is this almost good news, bad news section of the week. We did all right on the good news this time, Mike.
It's good data about bad news, I'm afraid. So I came across the Information is Beautiful Awards, the shortlist for the awards that came out relatively recently. And the one that I saw that was really interested me was a Reuters piece of work on the collapse of insects. An absolutely beautiful set of infographics that you can scroll through to look at actually what is quite a worrying thing. Amazing visualizations telling the story about the decline of insects. And two things which I pulled out of it to make you feel really great. In the last 150 years, the world has lost 5 to 10% of all insect species, which is 250,000 to 500,000 species, which is like an incredible number. And of 1 million different insect species that are known to science, 99% of them, we don't even know what their conservation status is. So we don't even know if they're at risk. We know they exist, but we don't know if they're at risk.
I feel like you set us up a bit there. I was expecting some good data, and then I got a kick in the guts.
Sorry about that.
Well, let me try and throw some good data at this then. So first one is Mike is running our mastermind solo next week. So that's good data, because it means that I can have a day off. Well, not quite a day off, because I'm off to the London Stock Exchange to meet someone, but that's good data for me. Also, Mike fixed my toe, and this is good data because we were having a over dinner chat about exercise and getting old, and you basically diagnosed me, told me what medicines to get, and then before I knew it, I felt fixed, and off I went with my kickboxing last night. So
I was going to say, fortunately, you survived the kickboxing. Because if you got injured doing that as a result of me suggesting you get a bit of ibuprofen, I'd have really felt bad.
Other good data, and Kat, I don't know whether you're in this space, but I'm pretty sure most people are finishing their planning now. Are you on the wind down to Christmas? Well, not quite, but you're certainly over the bulk of your planning at the moment.
Yeah, so definitely think about the strategy for next year. That's locked in. So we had a steering board last week. So I'm really pleased that we were able to kind of articulate to all the FDs and CFOs across the government about in terms of our plans. So, but yeah, I think it's an interesting place to be. A couple of weeks to go before Christmas. One news feature stood out to me this morning, and that was I'll not name the bank, but there was a bank today on Black Friday that was not able to kind of satisfy some of the transactions that have gone through their platforms, and they said that they were investigating the issue as a matter of urgency. And there was a problem with the mobile and online banking service, all of those apps and services that we take for granted in 2023. So it was just something that kind of to me, even now, you think about the millions, billions of transactions that happen today, and we are reliant upon banking systems that enable that technology. And so that stood out for me from a data perspective this morning. So
and Black Friday as well. That's not the day to be messing with, because I don't know whether people know this, but Black Friday refers to the fact that it's when a lot of retail companies go from in the red to in the black. So that's why they call it Black Friday. And we're all out that planning process, which I think is a relief to everybody. And hopefully you didn't do it in Excel. If you did, tut, come and talk to me about planning tools. But good stuff. Well, look, that's it for this week. We're just going to wrap up. I've got one shout out to friend of the pod, Baron and Yangwei, who is the current FD of Love Cocoa. If you've heard of Love Cocoa Chocolate, then I hear it's good. He is speaking at the London Stock Exchange, and actually he's there to kind of discuss the autumn statement and the impact of growth on business, which is quite interesting. Obviously, he's in a growth startup company. So if you do want to learn more about what Baron's up to, then I'm sure reach out to him via the Gen CFO community or on LinkedIn. You'll be able to see him there. And Kat, thank you very much for today as well. I really appreciate it. Sounds like it was a massive day for you as well with this go no go decision. So I appreciate you taking time out. Thanks to you as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to talk on the podcast. Definitely, if I can encourage everyone to just take a look at their skills, think about the future, also role of leaders and managers within that. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you, Kat, as well. And that's it for this week. So remember, it's not all about the numbers. Take care.